Server restart in 3, 2, 1.
So, we're back.
Oh, crap. Are we really back?
Yeah, we're back. We have a slightly different setup because there was a COVID scare. So, Brian doesn't want to hang out with us anymore.
For the record, my test came back negative, so I don't have COVID. So, I'm just ashamed.
But you got cooties.
But I have cooties, apparently.
Thank God. But, yeah, so we're going to try a remote
Thank God for
recording.
cooties.
Yes, thank God that she has them.
And we now know that COVID can't be spread by touching people's feet.
Huh.
Theoretically, in quotes.
I mean...
Allegedly.
Well, yeah, I guess.
So
I think the important fact is that masks do work.
Masks do work.
Well, she
They
was
do.
wearing toe masks. So
I was not wearing a toe mask.
Work so
My
well.
feet were bare.
But they were warm.
But no, they weren't. They were cold. It was chilly. They
couldn't breathe.
They were
That's what it was. The cold killed the COVID.
the cold. I don't think that's a thing.
What are we talking about today?
I don't know.
We were going to talk about the
Afterlives.
Afterlives videos.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's 3 of them out. There's the Bastion one, Maldraxxus, and Ardenweald.
Yeah.
And somebody finally decided to watch them all today for the first time instead of keeping up with them when they came out, like every other Rabid WoW fan.
What's the short take on your response in general?
In general, I like them. I like...
No.
Oh.
Her.
Bastion
Her.
was the best one. And coming from my perspective of art, all things Ardenweald, I really liked Bastion the best. I don't know if it was just because Uther is such a recognizable character, but I like the thought of him going dark because he can't forgive.
So,
that was very interesting to me.
yes, you are delving a little bit into... You have some knowledge from the beta, and I've seen spoilers for it.
Yeah, don't you dare.
I don't know anything from the beta, like, regarding Uther.
Right,
Okay,
well,
so
we
you're just
talk about it.
referencing the video.
I'm just referencing the video. I don't know anything. I haven't done any of the Covenant story stuff. Like, I played through each of the zones, but I think that's a Covenant
Discovery
story.
Zone?
It's not a zone story because I didn't run it. I think I maybe ran into Uther or something where he was around. I did. A little area where he was around, and he did not look like the Kyrian look like. But I had no context for that. The only thing that I knew of was, bits and bobs that I've heard around. But I think that's the Covenant story, maybe, is the story that tells that. And I haven't done any of that. Like, I did, so you go to Bastion first, and then you go to, what's the next? Maldraxxus, then Ardenweald, and then Revendreth. And they adjusted...
And she just spoiled everything.
They adjusted the XP gain in between when I started leveling and when I was going back to finish. And now I don't have enough quests. So I'm like 58 and I don't have enough quests to get to 60 because I've done them all and they adjusted the things down and there's just not enough. So that character is bugged right now. And I haven't done anything else with any. I started leveling my Shadow Priest for a little bit because Shadow Priests are leveling wise, they seem really, really strong. I don't know if they're going to adjust numbers and stuff, but I was way weaker on my Shadow Priest because like my item, it was like a 40 level disparity between item levels from my Druid to my Shadow Priest. And I was killing things with ease with my Shadow Priest, where I was having to be a little bit more careful with my Druid. And probably that's because you have Mind Flay as a Shadow Priest. And so you can dot things and then just let them slowly crawl towards you, which is my preferred gameplay. I like the dot and drain specs, but I love my druid, so I'm gonna stay with my druid. But yeah, I love Shadow Priests. Like Shadow Priests were and Affliction Warlocks. Like Affliction Warlock was what I played in BC, and a Shadow Priest, and then Shadow Priest all the way up through Warlords. And then I hated it in Warlords because they changed it to make it basically a Shadow Mage. They had that clarity of will or clarity of power or something like that, where you basically were mind spiking and wiping your dots away. And it was super crappy. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I stopped and I played a Hunter, that X-Pack, and then I went into Druid after that. That was next one was Legion, right?
Just stop right there. No, Druid. Yeah, we're done.
Druid.
Talking.
Druid.
What do they refer to the Bastion one as? Oh, is this Bastion? Was there a name for it?
Wait, what? Sorry.
Afterlives? Did they have an official name for the video?
Maybe.
No, it was Bastion, yeah.
Yeah, that's just the zone,
Bastion.
though. Like, is that?
Yeah, so the Afterlives, you got 3. You got one from Bastion, which entails the story of Uther. Uther getting killed by Arthas before he was the Lich King, but after he had Frostmourne. And then the second one was Draka, Thrall's mother, but it was Draka from our timeline, not Draenor timeline. And then the Ardenweald was Ursoc. What are they, the Great Wild Ones or the
Wild Gods?
The Wild Gods, yeah. So
Bastion.
one
Afterlives Bastion.
Right. So I think one of the reasons why the first one is so well received is Uther and Arthas are extremely well-known characters. I mean, they've been around since was Uther in Warcraft 2?
He was in Warcraft 3.
I know he was in 3.
Yeah, I don't
and
know.
along with Arthas. I don't know if he was one of like the heroic units in Warcraft 2, but I mean, there's a lot of backstory there.
Well,
so
and they had quests too, like when you went back to like
Uther's tomb and all that stuff, or
Strat.
Yeah.
Remember you went back and relived that stuff with Jaina and Uther when they were trying to convince Arthas not to go into
calling
Strat.
a Strat, yeah.
Yeah.
So you see those characters. They're in the game a lot more, and so it resonates with a lot more of the player base, I think, especially people that have been playing the game for a long time and are familiar with the lore. With Draka, she's an important lore character in as much as she basically saved Thrall's life so that he could be Green Jesus.
That's fair, but she, I think this is one of the ones that just kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something there, but
I feel like
Draka
they did a
being
disservice.
a big key figure, on this, whatever, what do they call them? They call them continents? I don't know.
In the Covenant?
Sure, but land pieces, right? So why is Draka such a big deal
In Maldraxxus? Well, I mean, she's a big deal because the person took her in and trained her for whatever reason.
Well, she's your contact.
Right, but
don't you ruin anything.
I'm trying not to.
No, she's she's the contact there, but she's also second in command in the House of Eyes. No, I don't know what house it was. The one that the guy sent her to the other one, and after he got killed and all that stuff, and they turned on them or whatever. But I mean,
well, sure. So from the video's perspective, yeah. But backing up from where people go from the living realm to the afterlife realm, or the one that's in the middle somewhere. I don't know where the hell it is. I don't know. Draka seems like a weird pick to be a key lore character in this realm.
Well, I'm sure we'll find more characters in there. I'm sure there's going to be more lore characters in each zone. I don't know why they picked Draka. I don't know if somebody just like, well, we don't use this character that much. Let's throw her in.
That's one of those things. I hope it's not that case. And we're gonna get the feel of why they chose. I'm sure. Just right off the bat, it just doesn't seem.
Well,
so It almost feels like they want to have representation from the different factions in those zones, so that way maybe you can feel a little bit more, right? So they've got Uther, right? So the humans are really gonna, or the Alliance is really gonna be all, ooh, Uther. So maybe them putting Drock in there because Uther is their
Blüther.
equivalent.
That's the internet term, Blüther.
Blüther is their equivalent of making it more even for the Horde. Yeah, I mean...
Well, Draka was never a big part of the
Right.
Horde, period.
But Thrall was, and she's his mother. And so
Sure.
Thrall's
So, but what about...
quote-unquote dead, but
What about Ardenweald?
they don't have
They don't have anybody.
No, neither does
Revendreth?
Revendreth.
That we know of.
I mean,
Well-
I've gone through the entire story in there. They
Oh my
don't
God,
have
I'm gonna
anybody
kill her. I'm gonna kill her.
I haven't done it. I'm not
I'm
talking
going to murder
about
her.
it.
You're
mean,
like
they
a
don't
month and a half
I'm
out.
just
If you ruin
talking
it for
in
me,
res-
I will drive
I
down there,
will
get
not
COVID, and
ruin
murder
it
you.
for you.
I'm just talking in respects to the Afterlives animations, right? So the key character in the last one was Ursoc, which is just a wild god, which mainly pertains to druids and other, like the Tauren probably had something to do with it, because like they're all about the wild gods and stuff like that, furbolgs
So,
and
Here,
stuff.
answer me this. So, the Shadowlands, is it a realm for the Afterlife only for Azeroth?
No,
So why the fuck does it have 4 covenants that are governed by only people that have come from Azeroth?
well, it's not governed.
They're not.
No.
They have different.
The
like,
Arbiter, not the Arbiter.
The Kyrians.
Maybe
they're
govern was a bad
not.
word. Again, I don't
They're
know
not
enough
Azeroth
about-
races. They're people who, for the Kyrian, they're people who ascend to become Kyrian. So you could be any race as long as you lived a good, virtuous life and they deem you worthy, you can ascend and become a Kyrian, right? I haven't seen any other races, so I don't know. I can't imagine a lot of orcs being there because they're generally a more war-like race, right? They're not,
The Kyrian are?
No,
the orcs
are. So
Oh.
I would assume more orcs would go to like Maldraxxus than would go to Bastion.
More, yes.
God, I have
not,
so many
Not
questions.
all.
not all.
No,
because,
not all.
again, it's all based on your life. Now, the question has to do with alternate timelines. Are the Shadowlands the afterlife for every...
Oh, or is there an
Every
alternate
timeline.
timeline for?
Is there an alternate
Is
Shadowlands?
there a maw for each? Oh my God! Could you imagine?
I mean, our realm... no, it has to be one. Because if you think about the Legion...
I don't think that's a thing, though. When you go back and think about the explanation behind Warlords of Draenor, the time point in history that they pulled into for that, they stated at some point that there was essentially an instance. The planet or wherever you were at was just an instance of time. Nothing
right,
else
like
in
a
that
pocket
time frame
dimension.
anywhere else existed.
All right.
You're right. Yeah, because when we fought Archimonde at the end, I mean, that was the Archimonde. It wasn't...
Yeah, because they could.
Right.
He had no
Their
issues, and he did that
version.
several times.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. So, and I read some stuff, too, about how when the Bronze Dragon flight manipulate time and create these, like, inadvertent time splits, or whatever you want to call them, they eventually find a way to mend themselves and come back in. And the reason why Warlords didn't was mainly because of the one guy that helped Garrosh escape, helped prevent it for longer so that they could enact that stuff or something along those lines. There was something that was preventing it from being reabsorbed into the main timeline for some time.
So yeah, I guess back to your original point. I believe the Shadowlands, again, like you're talking about, is just one layer across everything, regardless of
Yeah, and we'll probably encounter people of different races and different whatever from other parts of the universe in some ways. If you think about it, it's almost like the Shadowlands is like the progenitor of the different species. I don't know. there's a lot there that's not explained yet.
So, like in this case, let's break down each one individually and just kind of go through those because I think it's I mean they're all still very interesting. Despite my hatred for druids, I still find that the Ardenweald it gives off probably the most interesting. And I will say, I think I mentioned this earlier in Discord, but the close similarity to the regular
Emerald Nightmare?
life, I don't know, whatever you call it, that this whole realm has, kind of fucking bothers me. Just because it's, I don't know.
I mean,
I
because
think
it
it's
just
a
seems
lot of
like
things
another
that's probably
plane of
explained in the story, but
how it's. Are you talking about how it's just like another plane of existence where
yeah,
everybody
like,
comes
it's
in
just
and
not
it's like you got a new
abnormal
life?
enough. Look, or you know what I mean? Like, then again, don't get me wrong. That's my initial reaction to a lot of this stuff, and I've looked at a few things about betas on Twitch, but for the most part, I don't know. It's something I gotta kind of swallow down, I guess, a little bit. But
I almost think of it as you could look at it from that they are modeling it in a way that you're more comfortable with. So maybe it's
It looks that way for us because it's
Right.
more like it's our minds turning it into a
right
simulation
something
of what we know
can
from Azeroth, whereas
Right.
another species would see it different, maybe.
well, what I'm really hoping is, like I said earlier, that your guy that you had us or we watched, a few months back, talking about the Maw actually being the good.
Oh, yeah.
I hope it turns out to be that, because that would be such a badass story arc. And I guess for context, that was the Maw being a part of the Shadowlands at some point, and for whatever reason, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't quite recall exactly what he said, but essentially the rest of the Shadowlands is bad and the Maw is actually good, and it needed to leverage something to flip-flop. Is that essentially what it was?
I think basically it was something along the lines that the jailer was basically unjustly captured or subjugated into this part of the Shadowlands for eternity.
kind of like Helia, how she was
Yes. Well, he talked about that too, about how Helia was tricked by Odin,
and cast.
but every time she dies, she goes to the Maw and gets sent back.
Yeah.
So she's in a cycle. So part of the reason why she was helping Sylvanas was to break that cycle.
Right.
So she wouldn't be stuck for eternity.
Right.
And
Odin's
it just,
such a huge dick.
yeah.
Like, seriously. Like, when I found out about that, I was like, what? What a huge dick.
But
And he's the one that traded his eye, right? He traded his eye for an
Yes,
sight
and-
into the Shadowlands.
yes, which you can't really see much. But
That's because somebody stuck it up their ass.
yeah. But
He sees everything through a
Look at
haze
this.
of brown.
This looks horrible.
mercy old brown eye. But
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, so no, he also talked about how initially Sylvanas was just looking for a way to break the cycle, or to not break the cycle, but to protect the undead, to find a way to keep them from dying and to not, just be gone.
Well, the only way to do that is to make more.
Right, which is why she was trying to get the lantern, which this guy seemed to posit that it was some sort of soul or some sort of anima machine or some artifact from the Shadow Realm that was a possession of great power that would have allowed it. And then by trying to use it to capture Air and all that stuff, would have put more power into it to do something to help. Like, Helia was doing her own stuff, like her own manipulations behind the scene, manipulating Sylvanas in addition to helping her so that she could get what she wanted and all that stuff. And when Greymane broke it and all that stuff, it released something, and that's most likely the point when the machinery of death broke.
But that's his take on it. That's definitely like
Right.
that's a very, very, very not far-fetched take, but
It's very far-reaching.
yeah, it would line up. I could see it lining up, but I'm willing to bet that's definitely not the case.
Well,
I don't
we
know.
definitely know from some stuff, and he talked about that, and it's minor spoiler stuff, that Ysera is in Ardenweald. She's one of the blossoms or whatever that you need to take care of, right? So she made it, And I don't know chronologically which zone happens first in Legion or what that cutscene takes place in relation to that, but odds are it's afterwards, which means that probably partook a little bit in causing the stuff to break. So now Sylvanas is shit out of luck, and then they make her war chief, and then there's all these... She's still being played by the jailer, but I think she's also trying to... she talks about how the machinery of death is broken, or she doesn't, or somebody does, but how when she's talking about the cycle of hatred and all that stuff about how everybody's reborn, and he makes a lot of guesses that, when she's talking about that in the intro trailer for the battle at Lordaeron in Undercity, that she's referring not to the Alliance and the Horde continually fighting and not fighting, but to the death and rebirth and just that constant cycle, and that she's trying to at this point now work with the jailer to break this cycle. He gets what he wants, she gets what she wants. I don't know. It's interesting.
It definitely is.
And then they killed Ursak, and that's kind of shitty.
It's kind of shit, you said?
Kind of shitty. I kind of felt bad watching that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh,
like
boo
that.
fucking who.
I mean, I get why it was a sacrifice to save, sacrifice.
Did you
the
see
few
that?
to save the many?
Did you see
but-
that good boy smile that he had on his face?
Ursak,
As
when he went into
he,
the thing when he was blue,
Yeah.
when he first went into his pod.
Yes. Yeah, he had that that classic.
I had
good
to
boy
say,
smile on him.
I mean, I know it's probably the same artists who are doing it, who did the Legion ones, but that
The Warbringers, you mean?
no, the Legion Demon Hunter one.
It's probably the
Because
same that did the other ones.
the
too.
Ardenweald dude looked almost exactly like
One of the
demon hunters. Yeah.
Oh,
Like one
yeah.
of the main ones, I think. Looked like face and everything almost exactly like it, which I found just funny. I was like, huh, okay. So I'm sure they have the same artist probably still working on it, but I do
Right.
like that art style. Like when they first started with it, I was kind of like, but it's really grown on me.
It's like a moving comic, but better.
Yeah. It's really grown on me, and like I said, some of the art has been kind of
It pisses me off. I want to actually see a full-fledged
rendered.
no, like an
Cinema.
anime style,
An anime style
Show.
WoW thing.
like an anime style,
Nani?
but with that
Nani?
art, but like a fully animated, like.
Oh, right.
Watashi wa thrall.
I mean, I'm thinking like GI Joe shit. You know what I mean? Like
80s cartoon shit.
closer to not that,
How about-
not straight up 80s, just more
He-Man.
realism. Than,
How about
than
He-Man, where they
cartoony.
just like reuse like every clip and like everything? Each new episode had like 3 minutes of new animation. I loved
I'm telling you, dude, if they did anything relative to something like the Star Wars, Clone Wars, or something like that, to help patch up the timeline or telling the story or getting people familiar with the story, that would be.
If
I
they
mean-
would do an animated version of the Chronicles books.
I feel like
That'd
they
be a lot.
tried to do that. They dipped their toe into the mainstream when they made the movie, and it didn't pan out for them, and they realized that was not.
That-
I think that's what it was. I think
That's stupid because
I
that movie was
know.
super expensive. You had to pay a lot of people to do it.
I know.
You can.
I can
farm
imagine
this-
that was probably somebody's pinnacle point. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like this is what I want to do with this story. I want to see this,
Yeah.
on the screen, on the big screen.
I mean,
and,
but then
you
they.
know, it is what it is. But it wasn't terrible.
No, I didn't
No,
hate
it
it,
wasn't.
but
And the freaking orcs were amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But again, like I absolutely hated the actor for Khadgar, and I
And-
hated the actor for Medivh.
and
so.
they did that horrible thing with Garona.
Yeah.
and-
Oh god,
and
they ruined
Medivh.
Tarzan too.
like because I mean I know it only exists in the comic books and they are pretty much washing that out.
No, it was
but-
completely washed out.
Yeah, but
Wait, what is?
Medivh and Garona had a son.
Medan.
Yeah,
No, they
Yeah.
got that in their pocket.
That, it was in the comics.
it was
and
in the
it's funny.
comics.
I
But
think-
he's he was OP as all get
Yeah.
out. And so
And I bet you they got that as an ace.
and so they basically have been washing him out of everything. But they made it so it sounded like she was his daughter in that movie. And it was like,
Well, they
But then
gave her
I'm
a
sitting there-
romantic thing with Khadgar.
yeah.
Which-
And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, but that's not, that's not right.
It's funny talking about Medan. I don't know if it's in one of the Chronicles books, but if you look him up, it
It's
says he's on
like-
page 404.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because they wrote him in those
He's
and
in
then
the comics.
and then I don't know if they just were like, oh, he's just too OP. He's just,
Well,
you know.
they think they scrapped all the comics canon.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least a certain run of them that involved all the Guardians of Azeroth. Is it the Guardians of Azeroth? What was Medivh?
Yeah, he's a
He was a
Guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Medan, I think, inherited that and didn't want to be it and was super powerful. And
Well, that was it was Medivh's mother, whatever her name was, that had
Egwin?
yeah, she's the one that when you read, I don't remember which book it was, but it's when the Avatar of Sargeras was roaming around and she had to defeat it or whatever.
Yeah, she's in she's in
She
Tomb.
struggled, huh?
She's in Legion.
Was she?
Oh yeah, she's when you go into the Tomb of Sargeras, she's like one of the voiceover things. She's there and she helps you get through it. Not like
Oh.
helps you, but she's one of the people that like narrating, like, oh, you have to go do this and all that stuff.
But no, she was one of the ones that struggled with that power and that
Yeah,
responsibility and all that stuff. I don't remember which book that was in though.
the Guardian. I don't know. I made that
War
up.
of the Ancients.
I really need to go
Reread those.
reread all of them. I need to get them all on Kindle. I mean, I know
Oh,
we
so,
have
yeah,
the
it's
physical
been 10
copies,
years since I read most
but,
of those.
yeah. but I know I love reading the books. But I need to get them all on Kindle so that way I love just being able to read on a tablet because every book that I want is at my fingertips and I don't have to worry about space or anything
I
like
hate
that.
it.
I know. I mean, I hate
I don't
it
know
from
what I can't do it. I got like the physical book. I got to have the physical book. I thought I'd love it, but can't do it.
I hate it from the fact that I love books and I love holding a book. I like the weight of the book, but we have bookshelves full and we have no room for any more books. But there are still books I want to read. So it's from a practical standpoint, I love the reading them on a tablet because I have my bookshelves all set up and I can go right on there and be like, oh, I feel like reading this today, or, if I'm out somewhere, I can do it on my phone. Oh, I feel like reading this today. And I don't have to I used to carry books around with me in my purse all the time, just so I could sit there and read when I was like, out doing something, wait for your oil change or whatever. I would read a book. What? Why?
I was gonna make a dirty comment, but I decided not to.
His face was
So I got a
all-
question.
Yeah.
What about in the Afterlives Bastion when Devos
Devos, yeah.
finds Uther's wound?
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with that wound?
Well, if you recall in it, when it shows Arthas stabbing him, you have his soul gets split.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the yellow image go away and the blue image go into Frostmourne, right? So his soul has been
Wounded.
wounded, damaged, split, or whatever. He's not whole. So that's just...
Don't act like that makes sense to you, huh?
Well, he was praying to the light, so the light probably tried to intervene and was unable to completely protect him, right? Maybe?
I mean,
And then, so it did what it could, so the majority of his soul went. Now, what happened when they killed Arthas and Frostmourne was shattered?
The Frostmourne shattered and like overpower some. Oh, maybe that's when the
When the machinery of death broke?
yeah.
No, because Ysera went, and she died way after that.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, when Arthas died and we broke Frostmourne is not something that would be part of the machinery of death or whatever, part of the cycle. It was
No, I'm
created...
not saying it was. I'm saying the soul fuel.
Well, they don't
on the
like
machine.
you're talking about the fact that it kept the anima. Yeah. So what that blew it was probably the anima from his soul, and it probably stripped the anima from his soul, which is why it took him so long to ascend or to come to terms with it, because he wasn't whole, because he was missing that like essential anima that normal people have. That's why the fact that Frostmourne is in the living realm is a big deal, because it was a big deal because the Lich King and all that shit prevented souls from traveling to the mall or to whatever.
Yeah.
It basically was sucking the energy away.
So that's kind of where her whole shock came from.
Well,
Like, holy shit, that's out there doing this. Okay, yes, because I remember her going back to the main person and then bitching about it, and they're like, shut up, deal with it.
Well, again, part of
because she wanted to help fix him, and then the person, who was the person?
It's not
the
the
head
Arbiter.
person, Bastion.
I don't know who the leader of the Covenant is.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. She said, well, she told Devos not to do anything about it, right? That's not the same thing as saying just forget about it. We're not going to do anything about it. They specifically told Devos not to, but she did, because they intervened and they took Arthas. Now, when you die, you go to the Shadowlands and you get sent to one of the four things. Nobody ever, until it broke, got sent straight to the Maw, right? You only got, if you were like the lowest of the low, the shittiest person in existence, you went to Revendreth and you got your tombstone and you had to basically erase your sins. And you basically had one last chance. And if you fucked that up, then you went to the Maw. But they intervened and they took Arthas' soul and they put him directly into the Maw. He didn't get a chance at redemption, right? All because Uther wanted justice, which...
That's slightly fucked up.
It's not justice. It's exactly what Devos was saying. It was vengeance. Mm-hmm. It was always vengeance. It was never about justice, because upon death, your mortal sins don't really come into play, except for basically the Arbiter playing Sorting Hat and telling you which house you're in. So he probably should have gone to Revendreth and been given a chance to atone for his sins. But because Uther couldn't let go, and if it's because his soul was wounded by Frostmourne because it, sucked all his anima out before his soul went away, or whatever actually happened there, which we may find out, we may not find out, it may never actually be spelled out, but it did something which changed him, which means his...
So he wasn't thinking clearly.
Right, he wasn't. But he also took it upon himself, and Devos broke ranks and, disobeyed a direct order and intervened with something that she shouldn't have done.
It's very interesting because it paints the whole holy picture of Bastion into a little bit of...
Oh, it definitely calls it into question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not Bastion as a whole, but...
Well,
it means
when I say that, I mean like,
it's not
we're talking about some form of afterlife, and then Bastion is like the holiest of the holy looking place, right? Without knowing the story behind it,
right?
And this gives it a little bit of Murder, She Wrote.
Right. Well, it's a crack in the armor or in the appearance of Bastion. It's not impervious to stain. It is, corruption can exist there. You would look at it from the outside and go, wow, that's like the perfect place. It's a utopia. Everything is whatever, but if you look at it, and I think if you play it like those Moon King creatures that everybody's calling Swolkin,
yeah,
they're slaves. They're slaves.
Slaves to the Blue Man Group?
Yes. They have to clean up all the paint. It's definitely not perfect. And then the fact that somebody could, go outside of the normal channels of how things should work and do what they want, that's bad news.
Did you see how powerful he looked? Do you recall the before and after of Uther?
Mm.
Well, that was before he ascended, right? When his soul is learning, they work with them, I guess. They get a case manager to work with to help, to let go, right?
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. It's like you're dead now, so
He looked ragged. I thought he looked ragged. Like towards the end, like it was really.
Because he was so focused on
Yeah.
Arthas.
He looked like.
It was eating at his soul.
Yeah. I don't know. That was my favorite one. I liked that one the most. That one was 2 minutes longer than the one for Draka. Like Draka didn't. It was kind of like, you know.
You can definitely tell their focus was
Yeah.
was the Uther story, and that's
Yeah.
fine. It's funny because I'm kind of partial about it, just because, like I talked about last week on our podcast, about you experience the story and then that's it. This is a little bit different case because it's not like we're still in Azeroth when we experience the story, but Uther was always like, again, like I didn't play Warcraft 3 until after I played World of Warcraft.
Right.
So in my mind, what I recall Uther is that monument in Western Plaguelands, and I think there was a book or something you had to get at one point.
Yeah, they've spruced it up.
Yeah, it looks
You
nice.
know what I mean? No, but that's what I remember about
Well,
all that. And
yeah,
now I don't
He
know.
was literally
It's,
put on a pedestal.
I'm not a big fan of these Warlords of Draenor type of storylines where they try to kick off and tell more about a character that has already existed in some capacity. And I don't know. I don't know
In
how
Warlords,
I
are
really
you
feel about it. I love the video, and I love the thought that dude gets all vengeful and tosses Arthas into the maw. That was badass.
What do you mean about though the Warlord stuff? Like what characters did they expand on?
Uther. I mean, they're picking Uther out of the timeline.
In Warlords?
Okay. So Warlords. Let me explain to you what Warlords of Draenor was.
Well, I know what it
All
was.
these characters we'd already heard about in the story. Now we get to go experience that story, right? And
Well, kind of.
well, I mean, you did in a different fashion, which
Right.
was kind of bullshit. Like, again, I don't these type of things where they're like, oh, let's throw everybody into the storyline because we haven't explored these characters in this capacity yet. So even in like Uther's case, maybe I don't know, but maybe he was big in Warcraft 3 and Warcraft 2 or whatever it may have been, right? But a lot of people haven't experienced his story, so they're going to make him a part, you know what I mean? He's going to be a key character now. They did that with Warlords, right?
Right.
All these
Names, big names you had heard of the different clans and all that stuff. You never really
yeah,
see them.
and
again.
honestly, like it just kind of washed out for me. It kind of washed out the value to having historical named characters, and that kind of just I don't know. For me, like I kind of don't like that. So
See, I'm different. I like that. I want to. It's kind of like that, when we were talking about last week, about how certain people aren't going to know who some of these characters are, so they're going to go and delve further.
right.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. Like if I had the chance to go, so I could go back, play the old games, experience what Uther was then, right? My point is like them putting them into a modern storyline in some semi-art. I don't know how to explain that. Semi-artificial is what I want to say, but that doesn't sound correct when it comes out of my mouth and my brain.
I mean,
Does that make sense? Like,
kind of.
it's one thing that there's quests that occurred already. You know what I mean? And whatever the situation. Last week, the situation was you skip over all that content to start the later content. That's the first thing you start with. And then if I were to see something like that and I can go experience that, I would go do that. I don't want them to pick pieces out of history and then put it in front of me, as the next part of the story when it doesn't make sense as much. Again, we're in some form of afterlife realm or whatever it may be. Okay, that's great. But now, like, Uther was this part of the game lore history, right? And you touch on it a little bit in the game, and now it's completely up front. And that, for me personally, that washes it out some. Not that I don't want to experience his history, because I do. I want to go read about it. I want to go play any game that's relevant to it. but picking him up and putting him in a new story, you know what I mean? Just because the situation fits that, I'm kind of impartial.
I was just going to say that it's not, I think, the same thing, because it's not like, oh, this is the same Uther, just different scenario. This is after he's gone through all kinds of shit. This is like just a continuation of his story versus,
Right.
oh, well, here's just Uther from 30 years ago that you're dealing with now, but he's on a different timeline and different events are happening to him while he's still alive. You know?
Yeah, I mean, no, I get that part. What I'm saying is the way that they pick the characters for the stories, though.
Yeah. Well,
it's that
with it being the Afterlife, they're going to definitely use a lot of key named characters that have died throughout our history in the game and what happened to them in the Afterlife and how that's driven the story.
Here, riddle me this. Where the fuck is Tyrion?
I mean, we don't know, right? Like, we're not going to see everybody.
No, I know. I'm theoretically, where the fuck is Tyrion? Like,
Well,
I'm not actually asking. You know what I mean? Just
mean,
think
Right.
about that.
he
Like,
died.
he was a powerful being, though.
Sure. So he probably went to one of the things, but his soul probably also wasn't damaged like Uther's was. So maybe he did go to Bastion. Maybe he did go through all the Kyrian training,
become
and
a
he's just a
Kyrian.
normal Kyrian
Yeah.
without all the baggage that Uther had.
Right.
Like anything.
Or maybe he was, maybe he had a huge porn addiction, and they sent him to
Straight to the mall. To the mall with you.
Oh
to
my
the
god, this is
mall.
terrible.
Oh my god. Dang.
It's like, you look at what? Oh no.
I mean, I feel like
He's probably in one of the different covenants that we're not even going to get to explore.
yeah, there's
'Cause
probably
there's a whole bunch more.
yeah.
Oh, is there really?
No.
Yeah. No.
Is there
Oh,
Well, we're only going to experience
the 4?
4 covenants and the Arbiter's Place in the Maw. So 6 areas. But there's more in the Shadowlands than just those 6
wait,
areas.
what's the 5th one? You said 4 and then the mall.
The main hub, Oribos,
Oh, okay.
which, I mean, isn't a covenant. That's where the Arbiter is, which basically sends you, I guess he judges you and sends you to wherever, or did. But, so that, the Maw, and then the 4 covenant zones, that's only like 6 areas, and I think there's more. Now, whether or not they are, or they exist anymore, maybe these are the last 4 that are left standing after everything got fucked up, right? Maybe all the other ones are destroyed or have disintegrated or have just
Right.
shut
'Cause
down.
there's not enough.
Yeah, because the flow of anima is dried up.
I
God,
will
I
say
cannot wait for this to come out.
about Oribos, I'm very grateful that they made it circular, so that way when I run around it at the
She's
end of
ruining
the
it, Jim.
expansion,
She's ruining it. Nope.
I
Is it just
can-
like Dalaran? Just
Kick her,
it's just
kick her,
like
kick her.
Dalaran. I mean, it's not. But it's circular, so you can just run
See,
around
I didn't
it.
know that, and now you ruined it for
Oh
me.
my
All the
God.
immersion is gone.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Believe
But,
me, you will probably be very frustrated when you first go
I
there.
wanted to look forward to a triangle, and now I have to walk into a circle.
It's kind of... No, it's not.
Quit playing with
It's-
my emotions.
I am grateful, though, because I can run around it.
I want to
Again.
bitch about Draka still. Draka?
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and end our discussion here right now. We're going to pick up next week and dive a little bit more into the Maldraxxus episode and possibly the Ardenweald one. And maybe by then the Revendreth one will be out. And if we have to, we'll do another thing.
Yeah, because those sucked so much worse.
All right,
I
guys.
found
Thanks
out.
for listening. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.